Welcome back to Dan91's Garage. This week it's been pretty hectic. We're very close to the first start with the turbo kit that we fitted to the Starlet, but I still had a whole bunch of little jobs that needed finishing off because I was either waiting for parts or hadn't quite got round to it yet. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this, see what I got up to this week. See you in a sec. So first up on the list of little jobs we've got left to finish is going to be to complete the assembly of the oil filter sandwich plate. So as we did in the mock-up purposes, we're going to use this one to feed the turbo and blank off the other two. So I've got myself an 1/8 MPT to -4AN stainless steel fitting for the oil feed. I've got a couple of little mild steel zinc plated female hex MPT blanking plugs. Originally it did come with a couple of aluminium ones, but they look a little bit weak and dainty for my liking, so we're going to go with stainless and then mild steel for those. So yeah, first things first, we obviously need to degrease this, get the oil off it, then we can thread lock in the fittings to the correct ports. Obviously this was our oil feed and these two were blanks, so we'll degrease that with some brake cleaner and then we'll get on with the assembly. So once we'll take the O-ring off the back and dry the worst of it off first. Always remember to use that in a well ventilated area, so I guess that'll do. Jesus. There we go, lovely. So we'll start off with the most important fitting. We'll give him a quick degrease and a blowout as well, just to make sure there's no crap down it, because sometimes, oh, there you go, prime example. Probably won't be able to see it, but if we look down there, it's a big chunk of swarf in that, so I'll give him a proper blowout just to make sure we don't send that straight into the turbo. Okay then, so Loctite 577 thread seal as normal. So that's in there hand tight now, and usually they take anywhere from 1 to 2 turns, so half, 1, starting to get tight now, and 1/4. Nearly 1/2, so we'll go with that. Just wipe off the excess. Sorted. So now we'll move on to the blanking plugs. Last one. That should do it. Cool. So he's ready to go now. Just let him cure overnight. Then he'll be ready to fit. So this is the piece we're talking about. It's the original bonnet catch stay that used to go obviously from the catch down to the front cross member. Unfortunately now we've got an intercooler bracket bolted to that, so this doesn't fit. It's too thick to fit behind it. I have seen people cut them down, so it's just this one strip of metal at the back, but to be honest with you, this material is so thin. I mean, if we measure it up, It's only 3/4 of a mil, 0.77 if you're lucky, 0.78 mil. And the same with this front piece here. They've obviously sort of folded up some flanges and put some contours in it for strength so it doesn't like flop about all over the place. And obviously being a U-shaped channel, that helps a bit more with rigidity, but at the end of the day it's pulled more in tension. Obviously this is to stop the bonnet blowing, sort of ripping up the front of the slam panel, buckling it up in the air. So essentially it's really sort of mainly pulled in tension and then pressed in compression when you shut the bonnet down on it. So I was thinking maybe to chop it off halfway and then just sort of weld it onto like a piece of tube or something, but this is so thin, trying to weld that to anything meaningful would be a bit of a mission. And then plus, once I've chopped this up, it doesn't exist anymore. So we know how rare parts are getting for all these cars. So I thought it'd be quite simple just to replicate it. I mean, I did have this whole elaborate plan and it was going to take ages and probably a day, but I think if we just keep it simple for this one. And essentially we're going to replace it with some sort of L-shaped bracket, which is going to be made out of strip. Okie dokie, so obviously if we're going to make an L-shaped bracket, there's nothing better as a sort of guide than our mini square that we've got. So we put that on the top bracket because we're going to be bolting it down to the central point of the intercooler. So we're going to bolt that in down there. And obviously we need to join up to that point there. So, well, that's a bit of luck. I mean, the square itself is almost tall enough. If we add 5 to this end and then chop this down to suit later. So yeah, let's get a piece of 4mm strip, bend that up, drill some holes in it, I guess. So this is the bracket I've made to attach the bonnet latch to the intercooler. It's not particularly complicated or pretty, but it doesn't really need to be. So it's 4mm thick, 30mm wide, hot rolled strip. So that just bolts in and that's pretty sturdy. So the only thing that's slightly bothering me is we've basically got 2 brackets doing the same job here. So if I just take you up off the tripod. So if we have a quick look in here, obviously we've got the original 2mm bracket that's 90 degrees folded up at the front, and then we've got another 90-degree bracket sort of sandwiched on top of that, going up to the latch. So basically I'm gonna remake this. So essentially we've got like a U-shaped bracket. So we can then get rid of the little 2mm one. It's not a particularly exciting process. It's just literally me bending that and then welding a tab on. So I'm going to go away and do that. And 3, 2, 1, snappity snap. So there we go. Another bracket bent up. Same material, just made it longer at the end here. The original one was never intended to be bolted to the front with an extra tab on it. So that's why it wasn't long enough. So I had to remake the whole thing. But wasn't exactly difficult, only took about half hour. So there we go, ready for welding now. So we'll weld the tab on there, drill the hole in it afterwards. That way we know we get it in the right place, because you never know if it's going to move or something. So there we go. Well, there it is, replacement 90-degree bracket. Fillet welded on the inside, welded the gap together there, and a little spot weld on each corner just to basically weld all the way around the best I could. I've got a 10mm clearance hole for the M8s and 8mm clearance holes for the M6s. So we're going to need to shuffle it about. Like I say, the nutserts don't necessarily go in 100% straight. Plus this boss might be a little bit off, and then this is slightly off to one side as well. So it does need painting, but we'll just drop him on there for today. That's him in place. So we'll start with the M8, and then pull the bracket forward. So the little tab is now touching on the front bar. Obviously keep all the fasteners loose until every one of them is in place. Finally the one for the latch. That's pulled forward, so I think I'll tighten up the M8 first. Then the front M6. And then the latch M6. There we have it, nice and solid. Catches back in, so we'll have a quick look. Just pick you up off the tripod. And now we've got a bracket that ties in all 3 mounting points, So that has to be stronger than two separate brackets that were tying in two of each and also being independent to each other. So we want to check it actually works. So we'll remove the comedy bonnet stays we had. There we go. No slack at the top. And that's about as good as it was last time, so we'll just pop that. Lovely. No extra strain on the bonnet release cable either, so lift that up. Yeah, jobs are good. Okay, so we've already chopped off the original outlet for this, which was about 4 inches, and it was far too big and a bit too obvious for me. I'm trying to keep it a little bit subtle and it's never going to be a sleeper with a loud exhaust, a dump valve, and an intercooler hanging out the front. But we can try our best not to advertise too much. So I've got myself a 3-inch 90-degree bend here, mild steel again from Jetex. I think it's about 1.5, maybe 2 mil wool. Unfortunately, it is rusty again, but I've cleaned up the best of it I can with a Scotch pad. So yeah, the original tip was 4-inch. The internal diameter of this is 3-inch, which obviously matches up with the rest of the exhaust system. It does appear this is a custom-made can as well, judging by the TIG welding in all sorts of funny places. So they've made their own can here for it. So that was fun, I guess. So now I need to mark this up, obviously, while the exhaust is in situ. Otherwise, when I take it off, I won't know where to weld this really. So using nothing more complicated than the wonder of spirit level, we'll just get it roughly on there, line it up there. I mean, it's not going to make a huge difference, especially when I chop it, but we'll just mark him on the side here. And we'll do another one at the bottom, I guess. So wherever the seam is, we'll mark that on the bottom as well. So there we go. We now have a position where we can put this back in. That's on there, so that's cool now. So now we can take the rest of the exhaust system off. But I don't want it to be the full 90 degrees because it's obviously not diesel. So somewhere between 45 and 90 would be nice. So we'll just draw it up quickly on here. So just a quick measure up. 24 mil for the bottom radius and about 100 for the top. So, and that's what we're going to end up with. So coolio. So angle grinder time. I don't know too bad. Well, fresh off the belt sander, came out pretty good. Again, the material they use for this Jetex stuff's actually quite nice steel. It's a shame it's rusty whenever it gets here, but it's yeah, it's good quality steel anyway. So it's gonna look pretty cool. A little downturn, like a little crosser exhaust or something. But about ready to weld up now. So we'll fire up the MiG 180 and get this thing stuck to the other bit. So we need to put the O2 bung into the front section of the centre exhaust. So on the Glanzas, they're up here in the cat or in the downpipe, but that's not where ours is positioned. So obviously the original position's here. So what I've done is line up where the exhaust hangers are, lined up with my exhaust hangers, because obviously that's our datum reference on the car. They hang at the same point. Measuring forward to this next strip of steel, lined that up with the original O2 bung, and now I've rescued that one out of an old exhaust I had so I can weld that into this. So I've already had this on the car and double checked as well. So if you can see down the side here, this was the safe zone that I marked up when it was fitted to the vehicle, and this was my rough estimation of where it should go. So putting that one on there, we seem to be pretty close to where I wanted it to be without checking against the old one, so that's pretty cool. Obviously what's important to remember as well is when you're placing your O2 bung, on this particular car, this is the first sort of like only narrowband O2 sensor it has, and that has to be before the catalytic converter. So if we were going to put a catalytic converter here or in the dump pipe, we'd have to make sure that this was in front of it by extending the wires and stuff. I rescued this narrowband O2 Boss out of an old Starlet exhaust I had, so I chopped him out and then sort of scooped out the back so it pretty closely matches the 3-inch pipe. So yeah, I've marked out where this is going to go, so we can drop him on there and tack it, and then I've got a blanking plug so I can screw that in there so we don't get any weld spatter buggering up the threads. I mean, you can tap it out again afterwards, but I mean, it's easier just to do it this way anyway. So yep, we'll get that sorted. I've got some stainless wire. I did use the same stuff for the cat, but it didn't weld particularly nicely. I have had a go welding sort of like a practice piece with just a mild steel wire, but you're not really supposed to weld stainless to stainless with mild. You're supposed to use stainless itself, but yeah, this stuff's pretty poor quality, but should be better than mild. So I'll give that a go with the practice piece. And if it welds like crap on the practice piece, I'm just going to send it with some mild. It's not exactly structural, but like I say, the last thing you want is when you're tightening it up, it just cracks off and takes a big chunk out of the pipe with it. But anywho, we'll go tack this on, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okie dokie then. So the exhaust catch-up weldathon is now complete. So front bracket, obviously welded around all of the vertical mounts to the horizontal piece, and also welded across the back, obviously. Little loop around there as well. Cut these off short because they were sticking out quite a way. And rounded off the corners. Obviously rounding off the corners on stuff just makes it look a bit more sort of professional, rather than not only sharp pointy edges everywhere, but it just looks a bit more sort of finished, if you know what I mean. So that's cool. Hopefully it hasn't shifted too much, but really when these are mounted sort of to rubbers on the chassis, it's not going to matter a huge amount if it's off by a couple of degrees from where it was. So that's cool. Obviously welded up the tip. This is obviously mild steel to stainless, so I just use mild wire. I am going to have to paint this, obviously, because that tip's just going to rust otherwise, so I'll probably mask this off and paint it in a bit. And also the O2 Boss is now in place in the front section. Welded around that. That was stainless wire, and it was horrible to work with. I don't like the stainless MIG wire. But after turning it up to some ludicrous wire speed, it actually started to feed properly, because it was just spitting and coming out horribly on my practice pieces. But yeah, I turned it up to, I think it was 9, which is only goes up to 10 on my machine for wire speed, and it actually started to sizzle like bacon. Yeah, not too bad, considering the wire was crap and it was a small diameter circle to go around, and I've got some decent penetration through on the inside of the pipe as well. So I think we'll clean up all the spatter, take this off, and then give it a spray with some VHT. I've got this VHT paint, and it says it protects up to 800 degrees C. But, you know, at least it'll have some black paint on it and hopefully prevent it rusting instantly. So we're going to give that a go. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, guys. I truly appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Take care.